The Jefferson nickel has always been one of the most familiar coins in American hands, and the 1991 D issue is a perfect example of how something that seems so ordinary can actually carry stories of history, rarity, and hidden value. To most people in the early 1990s, a nickel was just a nickel used to buy a soda, a pack of gum, or slipped into a payphone. But for coin collectors today, the 1991 D. Jefferson 5-cent piece is far more than pocket change. It is a coin that can reveal surprising secrets if you know where to look down on the obverse. The portrait of Thomas Jefferson looks left, designed decades earlier by Felix Schlag. By 1991, the design had already been on nickels for more than 50 years, yet it still carried a certain weight and dignity. Jefferson's profile dominates the surface, his hair tied back in a colonial queue. To the left runs the inscription, "I in God we trust," and to the right is liberty followed by the year, 1991. Right beside the date is the mint mark D, the tiny but important letter that shows this coin was struck at the Denver Mint. The reverse continues with Schlag's classic design. Monticello, Jefferson's home in Virginia, standing tall and proud in the center. Above the dome is the national motto, E pluribus unum. Just below the building lies the word Monticello, with the denomination 5 cents underneath, and United States of America completing the design along the bottom edge. The Jefferson nickel was designed to be simple, balanced, and instantly recognizable, and by 1991 it had become a true icon of American coinage. Now, the numbers tell part of the story. In 1991, the Denver Mint struck over 570 million nickels. With so many produced, it's easy to think none could ever be rare. After all, hundreds of millions flooded into circulation, tossed in change jars, vending machines, and parking meters. But this is where condition and minting quality change everything. Most 1991 D nickels show heavy circulation wear. Jefferson's cheek and jaw flatten. Monticello's steps fade, and the luster disappears after years of passing from hand to hand. Finding one in pristine mint state condition is surprisingly difficult. That's why collectors prize high-grade examples. In mint state 65, a 1991 D may not sound impressive in price, but step up to mint state 66 or 67 with sharp details and blazing luster, and you have a coin that becomes far scarcer than the mintage figure suggests. The real prize is a 1991 D with full steps. This designation means that all of the steps leading up to Monticello on the reverse are fully struck and visible. Because strike quality at Denver in the early 1990s was often weak, nickels with sharp, complete step detail are very hard to find. Those full steps examples in top grades can sell for hundreds of dollars at auction, showing just how much collectors value that tiny detail. But beyond condition, there are also errors, and this is where things get really interesting. Off-center strikes from 1991 D are dramatic and eye-catching. Imagine Jefferson's portrait shifted far to one side, with part of the coin blank. Smaller off-centers might bring $40 or $50, but dramatic ones where the date is still visible can sell for $200 or more. Double strikes add another layer of excitement. When a coin is struck twice without ejecting properly, you get overlapping images, two Jeffersons or two Monticellos on one coin. Strong double strikes on a 1991 D nickel can easily bring $150 or more, especially when the effect is bold. There are also broad strikes, coins that spread outward without the collar holding them in place. These look wider and flatter than normal nickels and are instantly recognizable. A broad-struck 1991 D nickel might sell for $75 to $150 depending on condition. Cuds and die cracks are another favorite among error collectors. As minting dies wear out and break, they leave raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin surface. A cud is particularly dramatic, where a whole piece of the die breaks off, leaving a blank blob along the rim of the coin. Each cud is unique, like a fingerprint of the minting process, and values range from $25 for small examples to several $100s for large, dramatic ones. Perhaps the most valuable errors are wrong planchet strikes. Every once in a while, a Jefferson nickel was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination. Imagine a nickel design appearing on a smaller dime blank, or even more unusual, on a foreign coin planchet intended for circulation overseas. These are incredibly rare and can sell for thousands of dollars when authenticated and graded by major services. Proof coins from San Francisco in 1991 were made with beautiful mirror-like surfaces and frosted designs, but the Denver Mint was all about circulation strikes. Yet even among those billions of ordinary nickels, there are gems waiting to be found. Collectors have sent in 1991 D nickels to grading services, and some of the finest full steps examples in MS-67 and higher have fetched impressive results at auction. In fact, one such coin once sold for well over $500, far beyond its 5-cent face value. The Jefferson nickel series also carries history with it. By 1991, the U.S. had gone through decades of change since the design was first chosen in 1938. The world had seen war, peace, cultural revolutions, and technological booms. Yet through it all, the Jefferson nickel endured. For many Americans, it was the most ordinary of coins, so ordinary that they never thought twice about it. But for collectors, that very ordinariness makes the rare survivors even more special. Because think about it, millions of people handled these nickels without a second thought. They clinked in cash registers, rattled in pockets, and disappeared into vending machines. Yet a few emerged as near-perfect examples, never scratched or worn, shining with their original mint brilliance. A few others came out flawed by error, struck off-center, doubled, or on the wrong planchet. Those coins became accidental treasures. And today, collectors search through rolls, jars, and collections in hopes of finding one of those rare pieces that turns a 5-cent coin into something far greater. That's the beauty of coins like the 1991 D. Jefferson nickel. They remind us that history and value can hide in plain sight. A coin struck by the billions can still produce a handful of extraordinary survivors, pieces that collectors chase for their sets, pieces that tell stories about the mint, about America, and about chance itself. The next time you come across a 1991 D. Jefferson nickel, don't just toss it aside. Look at it carefully. Study Jefferson's portrait. Check Monticello's steps. Look for cracks, doubling, or an off-center strike. Because what looks like just a nickel could be worth hundreds, or even thousands, if you've got the right one. And here's where I'll leave you with the real question. Comment if you have one. Top 2. The Jefferson nickel is one of the longest-running designs in American coinage, and the 1996 issue is a fascinating piece of that history. At first glance, it looks like any other nickel you might have in your pocket, just a 5-cent coin you could have received in change at a gas station or grocery store. But for collectors who take the time to look closer, the 1996 Jefferson nickel offers stories of design, minting quirks, rare survivors, and hidden treasures that have turned ordinary coins into remarkable finds. The obverse features the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson, facing left, designed by Felix Schlag in 1938. It had already been in use for nearly 6 decades by 1996, yet it still carried a sense of dignity and authority. Jefferson's hair is tied back, his gaze forward and thoughtful. The national motto, "I in God we trust," curves along the left side of the rim, while liberty and the year 1996 stretch along the right. Just beside the date lies the mint mark, a small letter that tells us where the coin was born. P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, and S for San Francisco. The reverse is iconic. Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home, stands proudly in the center. The name Monticello is etched directly below the building, with 5 cents beneath that. United States of America anchors the bottom of the design, while E pluribus unum crowns the top. It is a clean, balanced image, instantly recognizable to anyone who has held a nickel in the last half-century. BY 1996. The Jefferson nickel was struck in the familiar copper-nickel alloy that had been used since 1946, 75% copper and 25% nickel. Each coin weighed 5 grams, measured 21.2 millimeters across, and was built to last. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 829 million nickels that year, while the Denver Mint struck an even larger number, over 1 billion coins. The San Francisco Mint added just over 2 million proof coins, carefully made for collectors. With numbers like that, it seems impossible that any 1996 nickel could be rare. Yet, as always in numismatics, the story hides not in the total mintage, but in the few pieces that survived in pristine condition or in those that display dramatic minting errors. Most 1996 nickels went straight into circulation, tossed into cash registers, vending machines, or parking meters. The majority are well-worn today, with Jefferson's cheek rubbed flat and Monticello's fine lines faded away. Collectors, however, prize coins that escape that fate. Mint state coins, untouched by circulation, retain their original mint luster, the brilliant flash that reflects light across the surface. Even in Mint State 65, these nickels can be worth a few dollars, but the real excitement begins when you reach higher grades. The key to Jefferson nickels is often the full steps designation. This refers to the steps of Monticello on the reverse. If all the lines of the steps are fully struck and visible without breaks, the coin earns the coveted full steps label from grading services. Because strike quality was often weak in the mid-1990s, finding a 1996 nickel with full, crisp steps is far more difficult than most people realize. That rarity translates into value. High-grade 1996 nickels with full steps, especially those graded MS-67 or higher, have sold for hundreds of dollars at auction, far beyond their humble face value of 5 cents. Errors for 1996 make the story even more exciting. Off-center strikes are among the most dramatic, with Jefferson's portrait shifted to the side and blank space filling the coin. Minor off-centers might fetch $50, but large, dramatic ones, especially where the date is still visible, can bring $200 or more. Double strikes are another collectible category. These occur when a coin is struck more than once without properly ejecting from the press. The result is overlapping images, a shadow of Jefferson's face or Monticello appearing twice. Strong double strikes on 1996 nickels can sell for $150 or more, depending on how dramatic they are. Broad strikes also show up, coins that spread out wider and thinner than normal because they were struck without the restraining collar. These errors are instantly eye-catching, and collectors love them. Broad-struck 1996 nickels can sell for $100 or more at auction. Cuds and die cracks also bring attention. As the dies aged and cracked, they left raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin. Each cud is unique, and some are so large they cover part of Jefferson's portrait or Monticello's roof. These can sell anywhere from $25 to several $100s, depending on size and placement point. One of the most desirable error types is the wrong planchet error. Imagine a Jefferson nickel struck on a smaller dime planchet, with part of the design cut off around the rim. Or even more astonishing, a nickel struck on a foreign coin planchet intended for another country. These errors are incredibly rare and can fetch thousands of dollars at auction when certified. Proof coins from San Francisco add another layer to the story. Struck with mirror-like surfaces and frosted designs, Proof 1996. Nickels are beautiful collectibles. Most sell for a modest amount, but flawless Proof 70 deep cameo examples are highly sought after and can command $200 or more. For collectors building complete Proof sets, these coins hold an important place in the series. Auction records for the 1996 Jefferson nickel highlight just how valuable this seemingly ordinary coin can become. MS-67 full steps examples have sold for several $100s, while spectacular errors like double strikes and dramatic off-centers have crossed the block for $300 or more. Rare wrong planchet strikes have broken into the thousands. Every result reminds us that even the most common year can hold extraordinary surprises. Why 1996? The Jefferson nickel had already seen decades of history. It had survived the end of World War II, the silver wartime issues, the cultural shifts of the 1960s, and the economic challenges of the 1970s and 1980s. Yet it remained a constant in American life, a coin that linked everyday transactions to the story of Thomas Jefferson and his home. In 1996, no one thought twice about the nickel in their pocket. But today, collectors look back and realize that hidden among those billions of coins are treasures waiting to be discovered. That is what makes the 1996 Jefferson nickel so compelling. It is both ordinary and extraordinary. For most people, it was simply a piece of change. For collectors, it is an opportunity, a chance to find perfection in a sea of worn coins, or to stumble upon an error that transforms a nickel into a one-of-a-kind rarity. The beauty of coin collecting is that it invites us to look closer, to see beyond the obvious. A 1996 nickel with Monticello's full steps, a dramatic off-center strike, or a proof in flawless condition reminds us that history and value can hide in the smallest details. Every coin tells a story, and the 1996 Jefferson nickel tells one of endurance, craftsmanship, and the surprises of the minting process. The next time you come across a 1996 Jefferson nickel, don't dismiss it as just another 5-cent coin. Hold it to the light, study Jefferson's profile, check Monticello's steps, look for doubling, cracks, or anything unusual. Because what looks ordinary at first glance might just be extraordinary. And if you do find one of those rarities, you'll know that hidden treasure was sitting right there in your change all along. And now here's the real question for you. Comment if you have one. Top 3. The Jefferson nickel is one of those coins that feels timeless in American pockets. By 1992, it had already been in circulation for over half a century, carrying the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his stately home, Monticello, on the reverse. To many, it was just a 5-cent piece, an ordinary coin exchanged for gum, sodas, or slipped into vending machines. But for coin collectors, the 1992 Jefferson nickel is more than pocket change. It is a coin that hides fascinating details, subtle varieties, minting quirks, and rare survivors that turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. But on the obverse, Jefferson faces left, designed by Felix Schlagback in 1938. His dignified profile dominates the coin, his hair tied back in a colonial queue. Above his head arches the national motto, "In God We Trust," and along the left rim the bold word "Liberty" is written, followed by the date 1992. To the right of the date lies the mint mark, a tiny letter that says everything about where the coin was born: P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, and S for San Francisco. That small mark often decides whether the coin is simply a common circulating nickel or a sought-after collectible. The reverse is equally iconic. Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home, centered majestically. The word Monticello appears below the structure, and under it, the denomination 5 cents anchors the design. Above Monticello stretches United States of America, while E pluribus unum hovers just above the dome. It is a clean, balanced design that had already become a classic by 1992, instantly recognizable to millions of Americans. But behind that familiar design lies the story of its making. By 1992, the Jefferson nickel had been struck in the same copper-nickel alloy since 1946, 75% copper and 25% nickel, with no silver as in the wartime years of 1942 to 1945. Each coin weighed 5 grams and measured 21.2 millimeters across, small and sturdy, meant to withstand the daily grind of circulation. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 441 million nickels in 1992, while Denver struck more than 330 million. The San Francisco Mint, as usual, focused on proof coins for collectors, minting around 3 million. With numbers like these, it may seem impossible that such coins could ever be rare. Yet, as collectors know, rarity often hides not in the number struck, but in the few that survive in perfection or in those strange and unexpected minting errors. Condition is everything. The 1992 Jefferson nickel circulated heavily, passing through millions of hands over decades. Most today are worn smooth, Jefferson's hair flattened, Monticello's steps barely visible. Finding one in pristine mint state condition, with full luster and no distracting marks, is far harder than the mintage would suggest. In mint state 65, values hover at a modest few dollars. But push the grade higher to mint state 67 with full steps on Monticello, and you enter serious collector territory. The full steps designation is especially prized. It means that the lines on the steps of Monticello are fully struck and clear, without breaks. Because strike quality was often weak in the 1990s, nickels with sharp, full-step detail are scarce. A 1992 D with full steps in MS67 or higher can fetch hundreds of dollars at auction, and in the highest grades, even approach the $1,000 mark. Then come the errors, those magical accidents of the minting process that transform a 5-cent coin into a collector's treasure. Off-center strikes from 1992 are particularly appealing, with parts of Jefferson's face shifted dramatically to one side and blank metal filling the rest. Minor off-centers might sell for $40 or $50, while dramatic off-centers, where the date remains visible but half the design is missing, can command $200 or more. Double strikes are another category that excites collectors. When a coin fails to eject properly and is struck again, the result is 2 overlapping images on one nickel. A strong double strike on a 1992 Jefferson can easily fetch $150 or more, depending on how dramatic it appears. Die cracks and cuds are also common conversation pieces. With the mint producing millions upon millions of nickels, dies wore out quickly. As dies cracked or broke, they left raised lines or blobs on the coin. Some 1992 nickels display large cuds on the rim, where a chunk of the die broke away entirely. Each cud is unique, almost like a fingerprint of the minting process, and values vary based on size and location, from $25 to several $100s for spectacular examples. There are also broad strikes, coins struck without the collar that normally keeps them in shape. These broad strikes spread out, looking wider and thinner than normal nickels. Such pieces are instantly eye-catching and can bring $100 or more at auction. Wrong planchet errors are the rarest of all, but when they happen, they become true showstoppers. Imagine a 1992 Jefferson nickel struck on a dime planchet, smaller and lighter than intended, with parts of the design cut off at the edges. Or even more dramatic, a nickel struck on a foreign coin planchet intended for another country. Such wrong planchet 1992 nickels, when authenticated, can fetch thousands of dollars. Proofs from San Francisco also deserve mention. Struck with specially polished dies on carefully prepared planchets. 1992 S-proof nickels shimmer with mirror-like fields and frosted devices. Cameo and deep cameo designations, where the contrast between frosted design and mirrored background is strong, are especially sought after. High-grade proofs are affordable to most collectors, often selling for under $20. But perfect PR-70 deep cameo examples can climb into the hundreds due to their scarcity. Auction records reveal just how surprising values can be. A 1992 D. Jefferson nickel graded MS-67 full steps once sold for nearly $1,000, an astonishing leap from its 5-cent face value. Dramatic off-center errors have crossed the block for $300 or more, while rare double strikes and wrong planchets have brought even higher prices. Proofs in perfect condition have sold for over $500 when certified as flawless. Each result proves the same lesson. The ordinary can become extraordinary under the right circumstances. The history behind the coin adds another layer of appreciation. By 1992, America had seen great change since Jefferson nickels first appeared in 1938. World War II had passed, wartime silver nickels had come and gone, and the nation had weathered decades of political and cultural shifts. Yet through it all, the Jefferson nickel endured. It stood as a constant, a link to both the founding era that Jefferson represented and the modern America that used his coin daily. For many, the nickel wasn't just currency. It was a symbol of stability, a piece of everyday life that rarely drew notice, yet always served its purpose. That quiet reliability is part of what makes the 1992 Jefferson nickel so fascinating today. Because it was so ordinary, so overlooked, collectors now see it as an opportunity. It is a coin that anyone can start collecting, accessible and affordable, yet capable of delivering hidden treasures. Whether it's a full-step gem that commands respect in registry sets, or a dramatic mint error that tells the story of the mint's imperfection, the 1992 nickel rewards those who pay attention. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. Coins remind us that value doesn't always come from what is obvious. Sometimes it's hidden in details. The sharpness of Monticello's steps, the tiny doubling of Liberty, the blank crescent of an off-center strike. Sometimes it's hidden in condition, the miracle of a coin surviving decades without a scratch. Sometimes it's hidden in errors, those accidents that turn mass production into one-of-a-kind uniqueness. The 1992 Jefferson nickel embodies all of that. It is ordinary in appearance, but extraordinary in potential. It connects us to Jefferson, to Monticello, to the history of America, and to the artistry of coinage. And it reminds collectors and casual observers alike that even the smallest coin, the one most people overlook, can hold a story worth telling and a value worth cherishing. The next time you hold a 1992 Jefferson nickel in your hand, don't dismiss it as just a 5-cent coin. Look closer. Look at Jefferson's profile, at the bold Liberty in the date. Turn it over and study Monticello. Maybe you'll see the faint glimmer of full steps. Maybe you'll notice a strange line from a die crack or a shift from an off-center strike. Maybe, just maybe, you'll be holding a nickel worth far more than 5 cents. And even if not, you'll know that in this coin lies a piece of history, a story of endurance, and a reminder that treasure often hides in plain sight.